Hey guys, welcome to NAMA. Sorry we're starting a little bit late. We have a puppy boarding with us. For those of you who watch my dog jitsu stuff, you've seen this puppy. And he doesn't know how to sit quietly in the crate while we do a live stream, so we had to put him in another room. So anyways, welcome. We got a lot of fun stuff for you today. Lots of questions. We're definitely not going to get to all of them this time around. Let us know that you're watching. Comment on Patreon or YouTube if you're seeing this. Remember, we will see your comments on Patreon first. We may not see your comments anywhere else at this point. Let us know where you're watching from, and ask us any follow-up questions you have.
And if we don't get to your questions this month, they will be automatically on the list for next month.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see. What have we got to say? What news do we have?
Well, we've been really busy out of town a lot, but we did, as you all know, well, most of you who are our patrons, got our new book that is now out as an ebook, and then soon will be out
as a
physical book.
We have it in the works. We have it in the works.
But if you guys have any comments, questions, we've gotten one typo sent back so far. If you find any others, let us know, because we definitely couldn't tell how essential was spelled anymore after looking at this book.
Oh man, when you start editing stuff, it's like every word looks like an alien word.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm going to do a video on this soon about how to use it, how I've been using it with Catfish. I've already added like 13 things to my checklist. I've just added little boxes and checked them off.
Yeah, so when the physical copy comes out, I think it will be the new and improved edition.
Yeah, for sure. But also, there's lots of space in here for you to add your own check boxes. So make sure that you do that and you submit yours to us, things that you thought were really like, here, let me read some of the things that I added. So I added containers outside, because we have a container section, but I didn't talk about where you do the containers themselves. So I need to add several sections about that. I added inside the house with the lights off, or with the doors open, or inside on leash. These are things that oftentimes people don't practice until they get to a trial and the CO goes, no off-leash option today. And they're like, what? I've only ever practiced off-leash or something like that. So yeah, a bunch of stuff. I've checked off a bunch of things, but also when I was going through to check this off for Catfish, which is what I'm using it for, I found out that I haven't done a lot. Like, I really needed this more than I thought I did. There's a lot of things in here that I need to do with him and get him out.
Especially things in the most basic categories, because you tend to kind of forget about them or think you've done them. Like, he definitely has not searched every room in our house, not even close. He's maybe searched 2 rooms in our house.
Maybe
he's mostly searched the barn, the garage,
and new locations,
and all that. So like towards the end of the book, he's got a ton of stuff checked off, but the first couple pages, it's hardly anything. And it's helping us decide, because we've been talking for a few months about if it's time to put him on odor yet.
Yep.
And so this is helping us get a more of a bird's eye, objective view of if it's time or not.
So the next starting from scratch episode, I filmed his working part already. I did a container drill with my class and I ran him in it and filmed it. I will also discuss the checklist. I will discuss putting the dog on odor, and because he's getting to the point where I'm looking up ORTs to enter him in. And so he's still not on odor, but I'm going to discuss how I decide when to put him on odor, and when, timing wise, when you're getting ready for competition and all that stuff. So anyways, he's made a huge turning point the last month.
Yeah.
Where he's eating food anywhere I go now and working for food.
Yeah.
So he did a freestyle clinic recently here, and I had no idea how he was going to do. I thought it was going to go terribly, and he did amazing.
Yeah, he told the instructor that he wasn't probably going to eat anything.
I would have considered it a victory if I got him to eat one piece of hot dog for the whole day, and he went through bags of hot dogs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he's doing that container search yesterday, which you guys will see as soon as Michael gets that uploaded. It was by far the most focused we've ever seen him when working outside.
Yeah.
There were no breaks for doing other things. So that was good to see.
Yep. So updates on the book club.
I have no updates. I spent the whole month doing other things like traveling and working on this book. So that's on my top of my list for January.
Okay. So January, be prepared. Some of you probably already finished the book 2 times.
I'm sure you have.
So then there are some big updates about the organization of course materials going forward. I found a new service that allows me to structure courses in a different way that I like a lot better than
in a way that
Patreon.
people can actually find stuff.
Exactly, and it's just a prettier outlay, and just in general, and we have control of it too. So Patreon doesn't take a cut of it, and we can, it's our content, so we don't have to follow their content guidelines. Which, if you didn't know this, dog sports are under attack, and dogs in general are under attack on social media. This is something I talk about on my other page a lot, but PETA became a major shareholder in Facebook, and they started,
or at least a minor shareholder that has too much influence.
And they've started banning breeder accounts. So if you're a breeder, obviously you haven't been allowed to sell dogs on Facebook, which that's fine. I'm okay with that. But they started targeting people who are breeders, who have breeder pages on Facebook, and shutting them down. And they've started shutting down dog sport videos themselves as abusive.
Yeah, YouTube taking down protection sport trial videos and things like that.
Yeah. So I don't want to lose my source of content for you guys because they decide, nose work doesn't fit our guidelines because you're using dogs to achieve a goal. It's like, well, okay. That's too bad because I have no ownership over that platform. But this one I will. So anyways, I think it's time for a rant.
Okay, did you pick one?
I have so many. I just CO'd a couple of trials in the Northeast, and I was at this one trial just writing down rant ideas. I was very frustrating. So we're going to do a trial etiquette rant about wandering, okay? This was a horrible problem at this last trial. It was super obnoxious. It's a beautiful campground area, right? And we've got these wonderful search areas. There's several line of sight issues, but that's not what this is about. This is about people respecting property and respecting that this is not a public park for you to come and walk for a mile. I would go every time I went outside to look at the parking lot or just go to set a hide or something. There was a competitor like a mile that way walking through the thing. This is not your private park. You came here for a competition. One, we need to find you for disseminating information, for who knows, all sorts of things, right? Two, you might see things that you don't want to see. Line of sight is a thing, right? And three, the hosts or the people who own the property might not want your dog there. They might have an agreement with the host that the dogs will be in this area and this area only, and we keep that area off limits.
Are people able to hear us?
They should be able to hear us.
Because I see waiting, and then how do you connect to the video? Have you started yet?
Let me know if you can hear me.
Live?
If you can't hear me, then we need to start again.
Uh-oh.
If you guys can hear us, post a comment so that we can either keep going or start again.
I don't think they can hear us.
Oh, but it played on my computer.
I know, but I might not have the right link. Yeah, they don't have the right link. This is a picture.
Okay, interesting.
Can you just edit it?
Let me see. We'll have to edit this out when we release this finally. Let's see. Okay, so the people watching me on YouTube can hear us.
Okay.
But the people on Patreon cannot.
All right. That makes sense.
So give me a second. Sorry, guys. I apologize. Hopefully this works. I don't even know if it will. Keep talking, Nan, while I do this.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a train of thought right now.
We were talking about trial etiquette and wandering around.
Yeah.
And how annoying that is for hosts.
It is. Well, and it can be an issue, too, because hosts haven't always rented the entire property. And so they may have then a venue that's really upset with them because there are random people and dogs wandering all over the property, pooping and peeing and doing and making other clients there uncomfortable. And so, we think of, these nose work trial locations as sort of private, but they're not. And especially when the hosts have said, like, I know in the briefing for this last trial that the host specifically asked people not to wander off. And so it's important to hear that and respect it, and not just kind of feel like you can go and do whatever you want. I know that sometimes people get kind of pent up sitting in their car all day, but we know that that's the reality of nose work trials.
Exactly. You opted into that, and so you need to prepare yourself. You're not always going to be allowed to run around and do whatever you want. I think it's getting worse with, I hate to beat up on AKC trials because it's not the AKC's fault. It's not AKC Noseworks' fault. It's the fact that people in AKC trials are in the habit of just wandering off and doing things until they're run. Mm-hmm. That's what you do in agility. You just go off and explore wherever you are. And that's not always, we have access to very special locations to do nose work in, especially in NACSW trials, places that don't normally allow dogs. And we have to respect those. These aren't legacy things like an AKC where they have trials here 4 times a year every year. And the owner's fine with dogs. The owner runs dogs in this thing. That's not what this is, right? Some of these people are really hesitant about losing dogs.
Yeah, if people aren't respectful.
In fact, this location that we were at, they had lost several parts of the facility to use with dogs because of different issues with dogs scratching things and things like that. And they said, okay, you can't use the cabins anymore. Oh. So we had very limited interior space.
Yeah, and if hanging out from your car is difficult for your dog, then that's something to work on specifically.
Yes.
Because that is going to be a part of trialing.
Definitely. So if you missed that rant because you were on Patreon, just know it'll be in the upload later when it's after it's all said and done. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any more news? We've got a bunch of things coming up. We're going to be in California in January for the CNCA conference. We will be posting during that conference our thoughts, and if we can snag a couple CNWIs or trainers to do interviews, we'll do that. We're going to be doing workshops there as well. So if you want to train with us and you're in California or that area, I think there are still a couple spots left in different spots, and there's also enough time before and after certain things to do private lessons if you want.
Potentially, yeah. Michael's coming in a couple days early, so he'll be there the evening of the 13th and some on the 14th.
Yep.
And then we've got the conference basically Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, and then we're doing Tri-Ball Saturday, although we have, we might not have the evening. And then we have the game day on Saturday.
We do need Sunday. Some time for ourselves to hang out with friends and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. We have the game day on Sunday, which I think has 4 spots left in it. If you're interested, that's going to be in Apple Valley.
And then we also, all that information's on the Facebook page that you can find.
And our public page.
And then we're going to New Mexico as well, which may not be full. I don't know. You'll have to contact the host for that. The host is Judy Whitehead.
There were a couple spots left.
Yeah. So if you saw our post, the one about practice, that post was by Judy Whitehead. You can contact her. And then is there any other events that we need to talk about? I think that's everything.
Yeah, then you have a tiny bit of a break.
Yeah, a little break. It's going to be amazing. So let's move right on into questions then. Okay. Question number 1. I don't disagree with your warm-up box rants. I like the way this starts. But when my dog sees the warm-up boxes, he starts driving towards them, and I don't want to discourage his joy of searching / finding odor. Sometimes they are smack in the path on the way to the search area, and he's already catching odor anyway, so I let him do them. What's the difference between avoiding all the doggy smells on the warm-up boxes only to deal with the same thing, especially if late in the run order, in the actual search area, most noticeably on a container search? As a volunteer, I've seen slobber pheromones trip up a lot of dogs once the dog has already falsed. How can we better prepare through training? That's a great question. So first thing I want to say, if you know me, then you know that it's never my goal to make things easier for the dog or to avoid running or run away from a problem, right? That is not why I don't want you to do warm-up boxes. It's totally different. It's totally aside. I want you to train with slaughter in training. But warm-up boxes aren't a training opportunity. The problem is all of the slobber is only collected on the odor box.
Well, I've seen plenty of people pay on not the odor box.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Let's not even go there. But the problem you're seeing people trip up in the actual container search because the dogs think that they're looking for slobber, not odor. Right? That's the problem, is the dog says slobber is what I'm looking for. And I think part of the way we teach that to them is on the warm-up boxes. Now,
and you're additionally familiarizing them even more with the dogs that are there that day.
That's true. And so if you want to take a slobber box from the warm-up boxes home to train as a distraction box, great. That's what I do, right? But I won't work the warm-up boxes. So I get your whole thing about not wanting to discourage the dog. I personally would put a hot dog on my dog's nose and heel him past it. I'm not going to work them because I think they're not indicating the odor. And maybe your dog is like in the first percentile of dogs who get to that box and only smells odor and doesn't smell all the other problems, which is great, right? But for my dogs, I know that they smell that odor, the slobber. That's the one thing on their mind. The odor is off in the distance.
Yeah, when Hazel was new to competing, I would do the warm-up boxes with her because they really helped her settle in and feel comfortable about being there. But that's because she has some, environmental issues, and she was very new to the sport. And so once now I don't need to, because she is very confident about going to Nosework. She understands why she's there. She knows her search collar and all those different things. So I may have been competing a little bit too early with her. But now when I have shows, we go, oh, she loves the warm-up boxes, I'm going to do them anyway. It has bitten us. She's seen ORT boxes then in a search and pounced on them because she's so excited because she loves warm-up boxes. And that is not an attitude, that I want her in. And she sees them from across the parking lot and wants to drag me to them. So yeah, I distract her with food and just move her past.
Now, if you like doing them or whatever, that's fine. Just know what the dangers are. The dangers are accidentally training the dog to alert on slobber, and teaching the dog to false alert because they're not really searching. There's only 3 boxes there, so it's not really a search.
And now the recovery boxes
is only
after
one.
Elite and NW3 searches is only 1 box.
Yeah. Now, on a secondary note, you start this whole thing with, I don't disagree with your warm-up boxes, but. So first off, please disagree with me. I actually prefer it when people disagree with me and I have to defend my point of views, because one of 2 things happen. 1, I defend it well and I strengthen my point of view, or 2, I realize that my point of view is wrong and I have to change my point of view to a better, more updated one. Either one of those outcomes is great for me. So I definitely prefer it when people have some kind of cognitive dissonance with what I'm saying, give me an opportunity to defend it and make it better. So yes, I really appreciate that, and I'm happy when people don't just hold it in to themselves. I'm trying to improve myself as well.
Yeah, and if we're saying something that doesn't quite make sense to you, it could be that we're just leaving out something we thought was implied, or there's something that if we just more fully explain ourselves, you'll either more agree or more disagree, but you'll have a better understanding of what we're saying.
Definitely. Okay, let's go to the next question.
All right.
I know it's a big jump from NW2 to NW3. We got into an NW3 and have about 2 more months before the trial. My instructor joked that my dog is ready. Are you sure that was a joke?
Should be your dog is ready.
Okay, I see.
That was the implication.
I see. Got it. Yes, that your dog is ready. Yeah. I feel like my success rate in reading when he's done and what we've covered in area is pretty good, but still evolving, and nervousness is probably inevitable to some extent since it's our first NW3. What can I focus on as a handler to make sure I'm holding up my end of the team? I appreciate any words of wisdom. Good question. Actually, we have quite a few questions. We have 2 questions on blank searches. So this is coming up to a lot of people. I think with the new rule change, people are a little bit more interested in blank searching. One thing I'll say is that my first NW3 that I did, I certainly wasn't prepared for it, in the sense that
I don't think we were prepared for any of our first trials.
Well, yeah, but also no one was prepared for NW3. No. It was the second ever NW3. No one knew what the rules really were.
I think it was like the 3rd or 4th, but nobody had passed yet.
No, and things were very up in the air. Like COs could do, like especially with Ron, right? He could always do something a little different. He was, I think, in Ron in his head, he was always setting elite trials. Like he was always setting something up that was an odor picture that you and your dog had to solve, and that was the great thing about him. And was also the really frustrating thing about him. There was no two of his trials that were at all the same or at all fit like the criteria for the level, you know? But anyways, I almost passed that whole day. Okay.
Yeah, both of us were just one very small mistake.
Yeah, I called a false alert on the blank search, and it was one step away from calling finish because I had a plan in my head of what I was going to do, and basically she got to the very last step where I said one more step and I called finish, and she's sad, and it wasn't an alert, but I called it. It was too bad.
And my one thing away was that my dog alerted on the vehicle on the opposite side of the car, and that was, I think, a combination of wind and inexperience.
So the first thing is, there's no difference between an NW3 and an NW2, except that the handler doesn't know how many there are, especially with how NW2 works now, where there can be up to 3 hides. You could set the exact same trial, day 1, day 2, and NW2 on the first day, everyone knows how many, and on NW3 on the next day, you don't know how many. Okay?
Yeah, except for, the only real difference is the potential for blank. But I think living in your head as if every search was potential for blank is healthier anyway.
Which is exactly how I treat it already, so it didn't even occur to me that there weren't blank searches in NW2. Thank God I didn't send any blank NW2 searches, huh? I think I would have gotten in trouble. Yeah. So 1, trust what you know already, and you should already be in the habit of thinking about search area coverage and have I searched enough, right? And what happens when you know how many hides there are is you get into the use of just searching until you found the last hide, and so then you have no idea how long it should take. But instead of thinking of how long should it take to cover this whole search area, no matter how many hides there are, even if there are no hides, which is the way you should approach every search, right? If you go in with that mentality, you can do really well. And you just don't get into your own head. The nervousness is the thing that's going to take you down more than anything else. The nervousness is going to make you stay in the search area longer than you should, right? And I know for a lot of NW3s, honestly, the mantra is get in, get out, right? Do your job, check thoroughly, but don't stay a second longer than you think you should.
And sometimes you just have to be gutsy and say, maybe I could have given everything another pass, but what's the chance that I really left something? And is it really worth the risk of going back again?
No.
And then if you discover that you're missing stuff, then that's a training thing. Where
exactly.
If you're getting into those areas and your dog is not working the odor, that's something you need to train. Yeah. But it's not, wander around the search area 3 more times.
So think of it this way. We've got a room, okay, that you have to search. And you go and you search, and you missed a hide, okay? Here's a couple of choices. 1, you missed a hide and it was in a section that you never searched. In which case, what the heck? That's your job. Cover your search area, right? Why didn't you go there? Is this you had bad memory? You got lost? What is it? And then fix that. That's a handling issue, okay? Or 2, you got into that area, but the dog didn't show any interest. They missed it. That is a total training thing. Or that hide was just not doable.
Yeah, bad luck. We probably all had searches where when we first passed a hide, the wind was just pulling it in a way that our dog couldn't catch. And maybe they catch it when it shifts, and maybe they don't.
Yep.
But, you can't do anything about that necessarily.
No, you can't do anything about it, especially with the time confines of NW3. Like your search, you may have 3 minutes, and this might be a 5-minute search. Even in training, even when you know where it is, the dog may need to work longer, and it may wait the odor needs to come out, or an event needs to shut off or something. So you don't have control over that. Or one more possibility is you got the dog into the area and they showed interest, but not enough for you to call alert. In which case you need to ask yourself, was I being unreasonable? Should I have called it? Or 2, is my dog perplexed by this problem so much that they weren't sure enough to give me an alert? In which case that's a training issue. That's not a handling issue.
Yeah. And one thing I find in both 2 and 3 is the issue of inaccessible. And even, people get through to, I think, without fully dealing with the issue of inaccessible in their own mind.
Yes. It's mostly a mental thing.
It is, because at least if you're training your dog to a strong criteria of get to source, then if your dog could have gotten to source, they would have. And if they haven't, it's inaccessible. So if they're trying to push in on every side under something, they're trying to get under, if it were on the edge, they would have gotten to it. So it comes down to reading your dog, having the guts to call it, but also being willing to interpret what's happening in the search area and not just looking for that final response.
Yeah. Inaccessible is not a training thing. I have this video that I've taken that I'm probably going to post on Patreon at some point. It was just a tennis ball had rolled under the furniture. And I always use this example, but there it was in front of me. And there's Catfish looking under there, sticking his head under there, pawing at it. And I was like, I got my camera. I'm like, film it quick. Because who taught him that? They don't need to learn about inaccessible. They already know inaccessible. All you got to do is have the guts to call it, or build the odor obedience. If the dog doesn't care, like Lumi comes by and it's like, what are you looking for? And she looks under there and she just walks off. She's like, oh, it's a tennis ball. I don't care about tennis balls.
Yeah, if it had been food, she would have pushed him out of the way and gone for it.
Exactly. So then it's a odor obedience problem. The dog has no tennis ball obedience. But if you built the right odor obedience, your dog would get to it no matter what.
As long as you don't teach them that you're looking for a decision behavior.
Yes.
And then you're going to get poking the edges of things. Which is not what I want.
Or these funny little dainty scratches that we're seeing now, where the dog's like, boop. It's like, well, that's a very interesting thing you taught. So anyways, let's get to the next question, I think.
There's always lots more to say about NW3, but I'm sure that's enough for now.
I have a question that arose the other day when I was playing Search for Treats, No Oil, in my house with my 2 boys. They both did the same thing when it was their turn to search. After they had found all of the hidden treats, they continued searching and sniffing hard as if they remained in odor. I allowed them to continue for a while. I hoped to get some indication that they decided there were no more treats. I felt unsure as to how to finish the game, so I just told them they were good dogs, said finish, and walked them out of the area. Can you please share your thoughts on how to read and respond to this?
I think it's very interesting that you're so much in the mindset of it being a search, like a nosework search, as opposed to the dog just looking for food. Because it's just interesting to me because that's not how I approach like throwing treats out for my dog generally. And so it shows to me just how much different doing a nosework search is than the dog just hunting for whatever they feel like hunting for. Because I think the dog is they're looking for any little last half of the kibble or crumb or whatever that could be out there. It doesn't really, it's not like these sort of distinct, like there's the hide. There's not going to be a crumb of the hide that they might be able to sweep up off the ground or that might have fallen under a piece of furniture or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, what's important is always put it back to the natural state of the dog, right? So this question becomes absurd when you start thinking of it that way. Like, how does a coyote know when he's done hunting for rabbits? Well, he's never done hunting for rabbits. He just takes a break because he's not hungry anymore, right? Or he's tired, or there's a variety of reasons that they would. So there's no way for a dog to tell you there's no food left. They should just keep hunting, like you're saying. And the problem is we start thinking that they're searching intense. It's like they're in odor. No, it's not. It's like they're hunting. That's the way hunting is, regardless of sourcing or not sourcing, right? So that's part of that. And then the other thing is, I've been noticing this a lot lately, and I was thinking about doing a rant about it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. We're essentially using the word finish as a punishment marker, and I'm worried about that. I don't know how it's going to play out, but we very consistently say finish and put the dog away, right? So it's a punishment marker. I'm saying you're not allowed to hunt anymore.
Unless your dog hates.
Yeah, if your dog hates hunting, that's a reinforcer, right? But I've been watching people do it, and I watched this video recently where a dog was doing a multi-hide search, and the dog finds a couple hides and then goes back to a hide that they've already found, and the handler says, finish, and takes the dog away. I was like, oh, I don't like that. She said finish when the dog found odor and then dragged the dog away, right? And in her head, that's not what happened. It was just a competition.
Didn't reward and then
put the dog away for finding odor, right? So it's like, I don't like that. That's worrisome.
Especially cumulatively
Yeah.
over time.
So one thing is when you're doing this kind of hunting with dog for food, and let's say I'm doing hunting with my dog for birds, okay? How do I know when he's done? He doesn't ever decide he's done. When I'm done, we're done, right? We've got enough birds, or I got to get home, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you've been
my
hunting,
job.
You've been running for 4 hours, and I need to make you take a break.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's time. You're going to rip your pads off if you don't stop running. Or I might go, you know what? I'm bored of working this field. Maybe there are more birds in it, maybe not, but I'm going to work this other field because we're not having any luck here, right? So I can make all those same decisions in nose work. We've been here too long. I need to go inside. I think we're wasting time and I'd like to move to a new area. Those are all things I can do. But the dog's job is just to go where I tell him and keep hunting and never stop. I don't want the dog to ever tell me to stop.
And I actually wouldn't mind if they leave some behind, because like I want them to feel like they should have worked harder and faster instead of whatever else they're doing. I mean, maybe they were working as hard as fast as they could, but it's fine if they leave something behind. I sometimes, if the dogs are feeling kind of pent up, but I need to focus on something, I will fill up either like a snuffle toy or just throw food around the house, let them hunt for stuff for 10, 15 minutes, put them up, get the next dog out. I mean, throw out some more stuff, but they might have missed stuff. I wasn't paying any attention. I don't know if they missed stuff or not. But that isn't really the important part. They got that hunting time, and then I decided we were done. And when we scatter feed for all of our dogs together, they will hunt, and eat very quickly for a while, and then it'll be long, more drawn out, more space and time between finding things, but they're still looking for 30 minutes, an hour sometimes, because there'll be that one little piece of kibble that's back behind something. And so it's worth it to them to keep looking, harder and deeper just in case there's something. Yeah. Even though there often isn't anything anymore.
That's such an important point, and something I've been noticing more and more. It's always been there, but I think it's getting worse, which is that people get really upset when their dog doesn't find all of the hides. Like even in a class setting, if I set a known number of hides out and the dog doesn't find them all, like I'll do confidence the exercises where here's a hide, here's a hide, here's a hide. And they all have like one's on a tarp, one's under a box, whatever. It's just something the dog has to push through and drive to source. And if the dog won't do it and doesn't want to do it, they want to bail the dog out. They want to get the dog to it. And for me, it's like the dog doesn't have to find it. Put the dog away. And invariably, put the dog away. If you bring them back in, they do it, right? But even if we don't, that's a great learning experience. I got in the habit a long time ago that I don't let my dog find every hide every time. Sometimes I intentionally set hides that I'm not going to let my dog find or that I'm going to intentionally leave behind. I want my dog leaving thinking, if you had just let me search for one more second, I could have found another one. That's the dog I want to go to work with, is the dog who keeps trying and doesn't stop and works harder because he's afraid I'm going to pull him off, right?
Yeah, I actually did this exercise this past Saturday. I set 4 fairly challenging confidence hides where they had to step on a crate. They had to do just different things that were, harder for different dogs. A couple that were harder, odor problems, just would take some time, and they had a minute and a half. And most of them found 2 in the minute and a half, and then they got put up. And then when they came back out, they were much more focused and just boom, boom, boom. Maybe not within a minute and a half again, but a lot closer to what they would have been. And there wasn't any wandering and getting distracted the second time. They were on task.
Yeah, that's part of the whole point of our 30-second game where the dog finds it. If they don't find it in 30 seconds, we put them away. I want to increase that idea in the dog's head. Like you're not going to be given all the time in the world to find every hide. And so pretty soon the dog's just like, la-di-da, I'm just going to take my time and do a 10-minute search for one easy hide, right? I've seen dogs do that. So if you haven't done my X-Pen drill, the problem solving 101, watch the lesson. But the first exercise is just, here's odor right in the middle of the floor, right in front of you, like 5 feet away. And you just let the dog off leash and they're supposed to go straight to it and get rewarded. And I've seen dogs go, yep, there it is, and start going around the room and going around here and going around there. It's like they're intentionally ignoring it. And it's just, we facilitated that. We've let them. Sometimes I say, okay, clip him up, put him away. We're going to run him again. We're going to run him again. We're going to just keep putting him away every time he does that until he hits it. And usually it only takes one time. The dog goes, nope, that's not happening again. I'm going to go to the odor.
Yep.
Okay. Next question. Okay, here's a dog who totally loses interest at trials. Tail is tucked all the way from the car, and he doesn't indicate. I told my friend to pair when practicing and to change out the flexi lead he uses to something with no pressure. He uses the flexi when he practices. He refuses to do either. What else can you suggest besides kicking the friend in the butt? So I know I talked to you privately about this, but I thought this was going to be a really useful thing to talk about in general. Competing isn't for everyone. We've had plenty of students that we go, look, the dog loves nose work. Don't ruin it for him by making him go to a new location and putting pressure on him. Yeah. Why? Now, if the competition becomes a landmark where the dogs overcome their fears and they're confident now and they can go and enjoy a trial, great. Awesome. That's fine. But don't make it the goal or the means to get to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not what competition is for. Competition is a time to show off your awesome dog. So if you want to get there with your dog, then you need to be able to have your dog super confident in general life, which means going back to like foundation. And I'm not talking about foundation nose work. I'm talking about going on walks with your dog, doing the whole take out the treats and go socialize and do all that stuff. Get your dog to a baseline normal and then worry about sports.
And then also, like if you think you do have a baseline normal, happy to go places dog, and then they completely shut down at trials, you're probably acting like a crazy person. And so you probably need to figure out how to address your attitude, energy, whatever it is that's happening if you're getting crazy competitive or whatever that's affecting the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be the fact that, you know, in normal life, maybe they see 1 or 2 other dogs and now they're seeing 44 other dogs or something that's just so different at trials.
So,
you know, problem solve.
I had a student who had a Fila, and the Fila was really nervous. And if you don't know what a Fila is, it's like a bloodhound. It's a really nasty,
giant
mean,
Brazilian.
yeah, they're kind of intimidating. It's like a bloodhound mixed with a mastiff. Yeah.
But he's a little scaredy wimp.
He's a wimp. He's a total wimp. But he gained a lot of confidence in nose work and was doing great, and even doing great on field trips. I was like, you know, go try him on an ORT, see how he does. And we made the mistake, and he did. He went, and she couldn't get him out of the car. And I happened to be there competing also. And she's like, he won't come out of the car. He hasn't been out of the car at all. Nothing I do is going to make him, he's not eating food.
And he's, you know, 150 pounds or something. Like,
yeah,
you're
she's
not
a little
gonna
lady.
make this dog get out, which is the unfortunate thing with a lot of people with small dogs, is they just make the dog do it when if the dog could. If it was the size of that Fila, it would not.
So I went up to, I was at our car, and I was like, okay, look, here's your choice. I can drag him out of that car. And if you think you can get him out and be like, yay, party, and he'll eat, and you can make it positive for him, then I'll do that for you. If not, you should just go home and let him chill. And this was his first experience for a trial, and all it was driving there and driving home and not dying. And that's not a bad thing either. And she said, yeah, I'm just going to go home. But, you know, there may have been a situation where we get him out of the car and he's like, oh, this isn't so bad, right? But in that case, it was better to just go home. And she decided, nope, competition's not for him. He loves nose work. We're going to keep doing it, but he doesn't need to have that stress. There's no reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And we have to remember that the competitions are about our egos.
Yes.
And some of us have dogs who love them. Like, I really think my dogs especially Hazel, like, she turns it on for competition days. But if that stopped being the case, you know, then maybe we shouldn't trial anymore. I want to trial dogs who want to be there with me, who are excited that they're in a new location hunting for odor, not, ugh, why are we somewhere new again? Or why are all these people staring at me or whatever? And that's why we haven't gone very far with Ghost's competitive journey, because trials stress her out.
Yep. It's not for her.
It's not worth it.
No.
She wants to be a couch dog.
You wouldn't know it. She's not as bad as 90% of these, like, of most of the dogs I see in trial, right? Like, you would see her there and she's happy and she wants to cuddle and she's taking treats and she's finding hides. But, you know, we know, because it's like she's nervous in this situation and this situation.
Her odor responses aren't as good as they should be.
So it's like, no, she doesn't need to do that. She loves nose work. Why ruin it, you know?
And why spend all that money too?
Yeah, exactly.
For the dog who doesn't want to be there showing off with you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think competition really should be for the dogs who want to show off or who really find it fun to go to new locations and do this. And that is really not every dog.
And then maybe mock trials and fun days are lower enough pressure that those dogs can do those or enjoy doing those.
Sure.
So that can be worth finding out.
Okay. Next question. Can you discuss how and what to practice in the week or two before a trial? Should it be blind hides, known hides, paired, not paired, or should we practice at all? Good question. So for those who don't know, I do have a document about this on Patreon. It's what to practice before a trial, something like that. The first thing I'll say is the advice I give to most people is a placeholder advice. It's like, it's generally a good idea, but it's not always the right thing to do for every single dog. Right. So normally what I tell people is the week or two before trial, no practicing. Let the dog rest. And the reason I give that advice is because the majority of people I work with overwork the dog before a trial. They stress out, they make the dog do these repetitive drills, and they're blind, and they destroy the dog's odor, obedience, and hunt drive right before a trial when they need it the most. In our own experience with our dogs, we almost never practice. We don't overtrain for sure, right? We don't do that much. We get the dog started. No, we don't have time for it. Yeah, we get the dog started. We do fun field trips every now and then, and we go to a class or two or a workshop, and that's basically our dog's experience. And so when we get to a trial's coming up, yeah, we do a few drills right before the trial. But they're not usually blind searches. And if they are, they're blind with help. And we're super fast and rewarding. They're almost always paired. We're trying to increase the dog's skills that I'm going to need, which is odor, obedience, and hunt drive. I'm going to try to build that, not destroy it right before the trial.
I made the mistake early on in Hazel's NW3 career that I did a couple blind searches, like, a day or two before trial. It was terrible because she did weird falses she'd never done before, fringing and all this stuff. It freaked me out. There was no reason to put that in my head a couple days before a trial. Yep,
absolutely. So if you want to do a fun little hunt situation before a trial, that's fine, especially if you've traveled. Like when we went to Colorado, that's a whole different climate. It's a different elevation.
Every time we trial to a new climate, we make a point of practicing in that climate a day or two before.
Yeah. Now, that said, doing a search the night before your trial is not going to cut it. If you're traveling that far and you've paid that much money, get an extra hotel day and spend a day with your dog in the new climate, letting the dog adjust. Go on walks, go to the park. You can set a couple searches, but the most important thing is just letting the dog go and breathe in that environment.
The foliage, catalog the new smells that are in that area. Their brain needs to process all that information.
It's a huge waste of money to not do that because your dog has a high risk of failing. And failing just because it's so new to them. That's all it is. So yeah, if you want to do that, fun little paired searches, great, awesome. Any of our foundation stuff, you can basically do all the way up to trial, provided if you work 8 hours a day a week before the trial at Noah's Work with your dog, they will be burnt out and you will have nothing left. Yeah. Okay, so I was like 5-10 minutes a day, nothing more than that. Keep in mind the dogs, how tired is your dog after a trial, right? They're wiped out usually, right? How long did they search? Not more than 15 minutes, right? Look at the times on the timesheet. It's 15 minutes usually total time for NW3, and then it goes less for each level down, right? NW1, the max time you could do is what? 3, 6, 9, 11 and a half. Yeah, so that's the max you could do if you timed out in every search without finding anything.
Yeah, and first place is often just less than a minute. Yeah. So you're probably averaging 2 to 4 minutes if you're, in the middle of the pack.
And think about that, 2 to 4 minutes wipes your dog out. Now, it's not just the searching, obviously, it's the environment and all that stuff. But
the whole day.
Yeah, but it doesn't take a lot to tire a dog out. Stamina is a precious resource. If you're a pet person, you usually don't realize this at first. You think, oh, my dog's such a hassle and it would be great if I could tire them out. You don't realize until you start competing that your dog does not have enough energy, right?
And a lot of the dogs that people will say, oh, they don't get tired. Yeah. They have a lot of energy, but that doesn't mean they're searching at their peak capacity all day. They maybe have 5 to 10 minutes of that. Yes. And then they maybe are still wired, but they're not affected as efficient.
So important. We visited my family last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, and we went out and I did a pheasant hunt, and I took my brother and my dad with us. And so we spent half a day out on a ranch doing some hunting. And my dog, if you looked at him, you wouldn't have known he was tired. He's running, hunting the whole 4 hours, right? Almost without break. We took a small break midway through, but almost without a break. But the last 2 hours, he didn't find a single bird. He was running and hunting, and his nose was working. He was exhausted. You couldn't tell until you drove home. He's like, dead in his crate.
And he has no idea how to economize. And some of that, I'm sure, is his age and his experience level, and he'll get better at it. But that is just a really long time to search. So my basic practice thing with my dogs right now is with Hazel, I make a real point in the 1 to 2 weeks before the trial of doing a lot of sourcing. So a lot of paired, just driving a source, making sure she's really tuned up on that.
So no one accessible.
No one accessible. She's very quick to communicate odor to me. And so I want her to think that the only thing to communicate is getting to source. And then with Icy, I tend to do a little bit of a bigger, longer type of search, a couple searches the day before a trial, because she's like up here all the time. And so I want to like bring her down just a little bit so that she can focus and be a little bit more in her optimum range instead of in her wild, amped up range. And it's not always nose work. Sometimes it's exercising her a little bit more, going somewhere new and sniffing a whole bunch of stuff. But before her NW1, the day before we did a level 1 exterior element trial. The day before her NW2, we did an ABC Games trial that was like one big search. And then, before most of her trials, I've made a point of doing, kind of at least one nose work thing. And that seems to make a really big difference for her ability to focus and calm down, because she is just really spun a lot of the time. Of course, we haven't trialed in almost a year and a half, and she's going to be 5. So it could be that she's a little bit more mature now, and we wouldn't need to do that. But it's important to really think about who your dog is as an individual, but then just be really careful. To sum up that very long answer, don't burn your dog out, and don't do weird things that are going to stress yourself out so that you then make bad decisions, because we call something too early once, and then we're calling everything really, really late. Or we miss a thing and then we're calling everything really early. And you don't want to be in the middle of a massive pendulum swing when you're trialing.
Yep. And it's so easy to trigger that, even in the course of one search.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you see it in elite division all the time.
You see people go from one far end mistake in one search to the opposite end in the next search. Happens all the time.
It's really frustrating for our trainers to watch. It's like,
Even
my God, stop.
We do it too, but it's like, please, I didn't mean for you to take my advice to that extent.
Yes. Okay, I think we could do 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, looks like it.
Okay, anything on here you can direct me to dogs alerting on pooling odor? Should I, as an instructor, teach dogs to work through lingering odor, i.e. move the hide around in class, mainly because each team needs something different? There is no problem I'm seeing. I just have a new student who's been with another instructor for a long time who never moves hides. Any direction to a link would be great to improve my knowledge.
Do we have anything specific on that besides where we talked about it in other
We've talked about it in NAMAs a few times. And so one of my projects that I'm planning on doing soon-ish is to go through all the NAMAs and timestamp them with the questions. So if you're looking for a specific question, you can just look, okay, here's this question, and I can go there.
If someone wants to be hired for minimum wage to do that, contact us.
Probably less than minimum wage, just FYI. Yeah.
But it's something that if we could afford to outsource it would happen a lot faster.
Yeah, well, we probably could. We could probably get someone off of a Fiverr to do it or something. Yeah. But anyways, let's see, what were we talking about?
Pooling odor.
Pooling odor. So yes, I think training dirty. That was my last rant for my last NAMA. If you watch it in the beginning, moving the odor around, getting a dog to learn that the largest source of odor is what pays, and not little pools and lingering and all this stuff. It's a major cause of failure in trials. The dog alerts on a small pool of odor over here when the source was over there. Mm-hmm. So if you can set that up in class for the dog to figure it out, that's great. You're one step ahead. It means your dog is less likely to fail in trial. It means that your dog is going to be more prepared and resilient and work through frustration quicker. The dogs I've seen that work with really pristine trainers who are very careful and never move hides. It's always the same search for all the classes, and there's never any pooling or anything like that.
They can really control that.
The dogs tend to be quick to frustrate and super, super attentive to pools of odor and falsing all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've noticed.
And they think that if they hit odor, they're there.
Yeah.
And so then if they're not, they just don't know how to handle it.
Yep.
I was talking about this with someone else recently, but there's an exercise that we do sometimes in classes where we'll pick like a wall or a fence or something, like set one hide, run it, move it a little, run it again, move it over here, run it. It's very similar to like our threshold training and all that, but just kind of on a wall.
Yeah.
And so then there's tons of lingering and residual in a really small area, plus slobber and the treats and all that. And I think things like that where you're really addressing the problem head on make a really big difference.
So just to see how far we take it, I had a class recently where we did a massive, big old container search, and people would set their own hides. They could set anything they want. They didn't have any parameters. And so we had one person go, and she said, I'm only going to work this small section of containers here, and I'm going to set 6 hides there. Great, awesome. She runs her dog, puts the dog away. The next person comes out and says, okay, I'm going to work that same area. I'm going to work the whole thing, but I'm going to start there. I'm going to run it blank. And so there's all that residual. I'm like, oh, yes, I like you. Good job. So she did it. Dog did beautifully. Then she comes over here and works an area that happened to have odor. And it was such a perfect, like, that's exactly the kind of training I do. And I want my dogs to be able to handle that.
And they can so tell the difference. Mm-hmm. There's this thing that happened, and I'll try to make this really brief so we can get to another question, but we were filming something for somebody else, and then unfortunately I turned the camera off too soon before we could get what happened after, but we had to hide up on a ladder that Icy sourced and got rewarded for, and then Michael picked it up. And then she's standing on her hind legs going, where to go, where to go, where to go, for like, what was it, 30, 45 seconds? But, no alert and not really, no frustration either, just, what the heck, that was just right here. And it was a very interesting picture of just the difference between source being there and it just being a bunch of odor molecules hanging out. So it was really sad that we didn't get it on video. All right, next question.
Yeah, definitely. I'm having someone volunteer to timestamp the videos, not volunteer, but to trade for video lessons. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely, no problem. Some of you guys are watching this already, so why not, right? Anyways. One more question, I think. So when your dog is searching fast and you're following fast, how do you prevent rushing or pushing your dog even faster?
That's a good one.
It is a good one. So one thing, the number one thing is more distance. Okay, so if you need a longer leash, you need a longer leash. If you've got a dog that's honestly that fast, that they're constantly moving fast and you have to run to keep up with them, a longer leash and moving a little bit slower would be better. That's where I have some students who move to 20-foot leashes or 25. Now, at a certain point, it gets super cumbersome. So then you have to decide, okay, I'm going to have to, I have to slow things down a little bit. So you have to decide when and how you're going to slow things down. The other thing to recognize is your dog actually moving fast? Or are they moving fast because you're making them go fast? Are you racing each other?
Or are they just enjoying moving fast and not actually efficiently hunting?
Yeah, they're not hunting at all. It's like a dog racing around an agility course but not taking any obstacles, right? That's not the same thing as doing agility fast.
Yeah.
So.
And it's can be, it's giving them space in different ways. So it's being further back from them, also being further out from them so that you're not putting pressure behind them. If I'm running directly behind you, that's way more pressure than if I'm running over here. Running like on the other side of the room, it does almost nothing to someone over here. Maybe they notice it, but it doesn't push on them.
Yeah, moving out to the side and giving a little bit more space, especially space to the side, tends to make things a lot easier.
And then just being cognizant of slowing down whenever you can, because we tend to get where we're moving and then the dog tries to slow down and we can't slow down with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next thing is doing searches off leash. I know a lot of people don't go off leash when they should, and then you don't have to do that at all. You can just kind of mosey along and let the dog work at the distance they're comfortable. Notice where that distance is. At a certain point, the dog comes back. That kind of tells you how long of a leash you need, right? Because you want that leash to reflect their natural boundaries and their natural distance.
And how fast they move when you're not moving.
Yes, and so. Then I forgot where I was going with this. Working off leash to allow the dog to work. Oh, doing more blank searches where you allow the dog to burn out that top speed spastic energy. You'll see after a couple minutes, maybe 5, maybe 10. I just did this lesson with someone. So we did a blank search. The dog was running. And then like maybe 5 minutes in, the dog maintained the same intensity, but slowed down and started detailing. Right? I think the dog needs to run off that energy sometimes. And then they're running spastically because they have this pent up energy that needs to be expended. Yeah, and it doesn't get expended if you just send a hide and then put them away.
Right. And maybe, if this is an ongoing issue, find ways to expend that in another way before nose work so that they can focus better. And not, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to be one of those people who goes and throws the ball for an hour and then comes and does a nose work class. Yeah. But, maybe it's the day before, get a little more energy off so that they wake up with a little less pent up or something like that. Do you want to try to do one more question?
Yeah, sure.
We have so many.
I know. We will get to your questions eventually if we didn't answer them today. So Would you talk about reading the dog when searching a blank room? Okay, we might get to 2 questions because we kind of answered this a little bit. I think my dog believes there will always be odor present. He will detail and detail and detail blank room. Any suggestions for reading blank room behavior?
That is a great problem to have.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to train dogs to do. So you have it. Don't ruin it. Don't do what a lot of these trainers are going to have you do and wait for the dog to offer behavior and reward that. I think that's a horrible mistake. Keep what you have. It's your job to determine it's a blank room. And how do you determine it's a blank room? Because you've checked everything. You've gone corner, throw
They
threshold.
didn't find anything.
Move through the middle a little bit. You decide when you're done. Okay, not the dog. Because the dog makes decisions. Guess what? They can make errors just like we can.
They may not know where the search area is.
And I don't want the dog to go, there's nothing here, when there was something there that was a little difficult. I don't want to have to be the one to say, are you sure, dog? Keep searching a little bit more. I never want to have to say that.
And you don't want to push your dog into erring on the side of laziness, because they will if you make that an option for them. Well, not every dog, but a lot of dogs will.
Definitely. Okay, we'll do one more.
Okay.
What are some of your favorite indoor/winter drills? That's fun. Okay, so first things first, I want to say, make sure that when it's cold and wintry and the weather's bad, that you don't automatically train indoors. Just a disclaimer, I'll give you indoor drills for sure, but I just want to say this. Get out there and train in bad conditions. One of the trials I did recently, it was raining, and a ton of people learned the lesson. Oh, when it rains, I shouldn't stay inside. I should go outside.
They were like, aren't you going to move the search to when it's not raining anymore?
I'm like, no, this is nose work. Deal with it, you know?
Plus, it was sort of like, do you want to search in the rain or do you want to search in the dark?
Yeah.
And that's often the case. Is you have, one, unoptimal thing or another, and so you need to train for all of them.
Mm-hmm. So now, indoor drills. I like doing It's Your Choice with distractions. So this is a lesson I've been planning to put out for so long, and I have the video somewhere.
If we could just get snowed in, we could have the time to do
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you just odor, food, distract the dog when they go to the odor, reward. I do a lot of that, or odor in the environment somewhere, but I'm distracting them with food. And I pull different types of food out, and that's how I train distractions. I don't put them in containers that much.
And/or toys if that interests your dog.
If your dog likes toys. Things. Yeah, I'll do it with a live bird for catfish at some point. I'll teach you. You go find that hide. I have a live bird. You got to ignore this bird. And then when he finds it, I'll reinforce him, or maybe I'll let him chase the bird or something. I don't know. I'll figure it out. That one. So what else is a good indoor drill? Just any of your general kind of hunt drive exercises, going around and tapping things. I think those can be fun. You can do fun.
Are you distracting them by tapping things?
No, not distracting. Getting them excited about hunting.
Okay, so pretending to hide stuff all over the place.
Pretend to hide stuff. Let the dog go hunt, especially blank. Adding multiple odors. It's always a good time to search some of the odd areas of your house that you don't normally train in, like a pantry or a bathroom. Some of the smaller rooms that we don't even set hides in because they're too small, right? Go set them.
Yeah, I've been thinking, because I was encouraging someone online to do this, about searching all the closets in our house, which they're all like freaking tiny. You couldn't even really walk into them, but that's not an excuse not to search them.
Yeah, and then another one would be training on leash inside your own house. How often do you have your dog on leash in your house?
Yeah, working on that close physical pressure stuff.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we do all the time when the weather's bad and bad enough to not go outside is we scatter feed. So we take their food throughout the ground. We've talked about this in other videos.
We talk about this constantly.
Yes, we do. It's like a life changer if you don't do it already. Just toss their food out in the living room or wherever you are in a nice big area. You can throw some clutter in so it's harder to find. Put on the TV, grab a beer, and relax. Let the dog go off and hunt and figure things out on their own. The cool thing too.
They're so much more relaxed after.
They are. And the cool thing about this is that it gets the dog to detail and slow down because it's kibble, 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 kibble. It's not like running through big areas looking for odor. And the odor, if you scatter it, will naturally collect in areas of interest, like corners, along the walls. The kibble stops along the wall, right? So all of these areas end up having little pockets of extra little bits of kibble that the dog will start going, oh, I need to check that corner, I need to check that, I need to go under this table. And so
it's definitely deeper, more thorough searching than our dogs are generally doing for nose work. And then last year, so we've been in St. Louis for just over a year now, and our dogs hadn't really experienced significant snow before. And when we had our big snowstorm the first week of January, it was about 2.5 feet or something like that. And Izzy was like, no, I'm not going out in that. But for scatter-fed kibble, she was more than happy to spend 10 minutes hunting in the snow. And ever since then, she's been perfect in the snow. Hasn't had any issues. And so it was a really easy way of getting her over that concern that wasn't like coercing her and, putting her leash on and making her be out there with me. She could have come inside anytime she wanted. But, her hunt drive and food drive is high enough that she was like, I guess snow's not really that bad. And now she loves it.
Yep. So, any last thoughts before we end this month's episode? Oh, when's the next episode?
Oh,
you'd think that we'd start deciding this ahead of time.
We need to put it on our list of like pre-NAMA stuff.
What list of pre-NAMA stuff?
Well, the list of rants.
Yeah, I do have a list of rants. That's important stuff, right? So next month,
I think the 27th.
27th of January. Mark it on your calendars. So start sending in your questions for next month. We got 1 or 2 more questions that we didn't get to today that we will throw at the beginning of next month. Let's see.
So that's an incentive for you guys since we're getting a lot more questions now.
Yes.
Get your questions in earlier so they're earlier on the list so that we can answer them.
And recognize that $5 patrons will get priority. So your question will be answered before everyone else's. You do get ahead of the list. The video reveal blitz. We're planning that for, I think the most votes is in February, right?
I haven't looked at that post recently.
Yeah, so that's going to happen soon.
It's very even.
I think we have, it is very even. So we might do it the Saturday the 25th still because that's a good day for us, but maybe February the 20th. So take a look at that poll on Patreon. You can vote.
If you haven't voted, you can help swing it because right now it's 10, 11, and 12 are the votes.
Yeah. So we can, if you're a patron, you get access to this for free. If you're not a patron, we'll sell tickets for this for you to watch. We're going to review a bunch of videos. We got the setup for it. I think we can do it now that we've tested it out with Sue and her talks. And I think it might be a somewhat ongoing series. So we might have contests where you get to earn video reviews that we're going to post on these types of events. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, if people are interested in sending in their stuff for a more public type
humiliation
critique, which is hard. Like, so really, props to people who sent their videos in because it's hard to be critiqued in front of people. Not for everyone.
Yeah.
For most of us.
So, and when Catfish does his ORTs, I can't live stream the ORTs, obviously, because that's a problem with the rules and people could see it who are competing in the ORT. But we will throw them up and critique them, and maybe we'll let you guys critique them. You can tell me everything I did wrong.
Definitely. Well, and when we put up, Michael's put up a bunch of his trial videos. I put up a couple of mine, and I am working on putting up more of mine. But
if you have trouble handling competition stress, there is nothing better than posting your videos online for critique. That is more nerve-wracking than any trial will ever be. And if you can get used to that, the trial doesn't feel nearly as bad.
Yeah. And there's always some stuff that you're like, yeah, you're totally right that I, made a mistake there. And other stuff, it's like, well, that's a bit of a personal preference.
Well, and even if it's wrong.
When we're critiquing stuff for you guys too, like some of that is just our preference of how we like things to look in nose work, and it's not all right or wrong.
But even learning to accept criticism that's just flat out wrong. Like that was something super important when I was in music school. Honestly, music school prepared me for nose work way more than I thought. That's something super important. Sometimes someone will give you a critique that's like doesn't even apply to your instrument because they don't know what they're talking about. And you just go, okay, I'll take that into consideration, right? And you just learn to shrug it off really easily. I see people take like dog training advice. And they go, well, you don't know my dog, and this is this breed, and blah blah blah, and he's a rescue, and he was abused. It's like, oh my gosh, just like smile and like maybe you want to discuss like why are you saying that? Like, do you know something I don't know? But don't fight with them. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you wasting your time? So. Anyways,
Yeah, well, and it's the same with the judges' comments too, because people, I think less so now, but for a long time, people would get really upset about the judges' comments, or they would take them and rewrite their entire training philosophy based on it, and like they're seeing a minute of you searching, or maybe a couple minutes of you searching, and that's for a lot of them all they've ever seen of you and your dog. They don't know anything about how hard it's been to get to trial for you, or that the dog is, whatever, they're a year old or they're 15-year-olds old or whatever it is. And so you really have to take both their critique and their praise with a grain of salt.
Yep.
I've gotten comments from judges who are like, that was amazing. I'm like, no, that was not a good search for us. And then other times we're like, you really should have done a pattern. I'm like, okay.
I did a pattern, not the pattern you like.
So yeah, don't take anybody's stuff too seriously.
Yep.
All right. See you guys in January.
See you in January. Thanks for watching.